My topic is on digital infrastructure as correlates of equitable access to open educational resources in federal universities in Southeast Nigeria. Open educational resources have emerged globally as a vital component of higher education, providing openly licensed learning materials that support teaching, learning, and research. It is driven by globalization and the need to share resources, technological know-how, and competence form the foundation for OER. The development of ICT have not only enhanced global economic and social networking activities, but also global collaboration and resource sharing. These resources include coursework, courses, textbooks, videos, simulations, databases, and software. The resources are intended to foster inclusive and equitable access to knowledge by breaking down barriers associated with costs, licensing restrictions, and limited physical access to educational materials. The resources are intended to foster inclusive learning, driven by globalization and ICT development resources and sharing of resources without any barrier at no cost. In Southeast Nigeria, the 5 federal universities we have in the Southeast Nigeria, mainly their OER is institutional repositories, lecture notes, and open textbooks. Academic staff and students have more to gain from OER, provided they can access the resources through the requisite technology infrastructures. They can also use these valuable resources to facilitate teaching, learning, and research activities. The primary objective of OER is to provide unrestricted access to educational resources globally without barriers through the sharing of academic, educational, and scholastic publications for academics, researchers, and librarians at no cost. The common resources include theses, slides, and journal articles via library portals. For example, institutions like the National Open University of Nigeria, which also serve students in the Southeast Nigeria, have demonstrated the benefits of OER in improving learning outcomes, but issues such as poor internet access, limited digital literacy, and weak infrastructural policies hinder their wider use. The digital infrastructure for equitable access, it will be good to let us know that the digital infrastructure encompasses the collection of technological and support systems that enable the creation, dissemination, and utilization of digital educational resources. The core elements include reliable internet connectivity, appropriate hardware, that's server and devices, software applications, and ICT support services. Reliable internet connectivity is the foundational condition for equitable OER access. Well-coordinated infrastructure enable the seamless discovery, streaming, and reuse of OER by students and lecturers alike, fostering inclusive educational environment. Studies have reported that a weak infrastructure exacerbates disparities, limiting OER use to a privileged few with access. This brings us to the central problem statement motivating the present study. The ideal situation is to have this infrastructure which encompasses the internet connectivity, hardware, software, and ICT personnel in place in the various universities to enable equitable access to open educational resources globally without barrier. But looking at the present situation, the hardware and software limitations, which including outdated server, poorly platform, irregular power, limited bandwidth, and inconsistent internet facility give a challenge to the hosting institution to operate on open educational resources. Infrastructure weakness limits OER access by favoring those with better connectivity, while basic material dominates due to inadequate ICT support and training. The study addressed the gap in understanding how deficiencies in digital infrastructure, such as inconsistent internet, underpowered hardware, and limited support service hinder the equitable deployment and adoption of open educational resources in federal universities in Southeast Nigeria. 4 research questions and 4 hypotheses guided the study. The study adopted correlation design research method. A sample, the population of such comprises all the academic and postgraduate students in the 5 federal universities in Southeast Nigeria. A sample of 400 academic staff and PG students in the 5 universities were drawn using multi-stage sampling procedure. Instrument for data collection comprises of structured questionnaire developed by the researcher. The first questionnaire was titled Questionnaire on Digital Infrastructure, and the second questionnaire was titled Questionnaire on Equitable Access to Open Educational Resources. The questionnaire was structured on a 4-point scale of strongly agree, agree, disagree, and strongly disagree, with nominal value of 4, 3, 2, and 1 respectively. Reliability of validation of instrument was done by 2 experts. Reliability of the instrument was done using Chroma Alpha to determine the internal consistency of the instrument. A coefficient value of 0.78 and 0.83 were obtained. Data were analyzed using linear regression to answer the research question and to test the null hypothesis at 0.5 alpha level. Looking at the screen, we can see the results of the analysis conducted as regards the relationship between the hardware and the relationship between the infrastructure and the equitable distribution of open educational resources. Then, from the results, this study analysis provides valuable insights on how infrastructure and technological factors shape the inclusiveness of digital learning environments in higher education. Findings revealed a weak positive relationship between internet connectivity and equitable OER access, suggesting that access challenges persist despite the availability of spread connectivity initiative. More so, it was also observed that a strong positive relationship was observed between hardware infrastructure and equitable distribution of open educational resources, underscoring the critical role of reliable physical resources in supporting digital learning. Similarly, the weak positive relationship between software applications and equitable distribution of open educational resources access was highlighted. Implementation and usability, giving an implementation and usability gaps. The moderate positive link between ICT support service and equitable access further indicates that ongoing technical assistance enhance digital resources utilization. In overall, the study concludes that achieving true equity in open educational resources access requires a balanced integration of infrastructure, require a balanced integration of infrastructure, software, and support system. The study then recommended that it is necessary to strengthen equitable access to open educational resources in the federal university management, and relevant government agencies should adopt a hybrid policy that improves both affordability and reliability of internet connectivity across campuses. Institutions should partner with major internet service providers to provide subsidized broadband access and dedicated educational packages for students and staff in the federal universities in Southeast Nigeria. Thanks for listening.